Bullion Cube water.
Welcome to day 2 of Mini Stravaganza 2023. We're kicking things off in an exciting fashion. Not only does everyone have the giggles because it was a late night last night and an early morning today, but we are here for the Star Wars Shatterpoint roadmap. So we're going to be taking a look at all of the cool Shatterpoint stuff that's coming out at the beginning of next year, as well as into the spring of next year. So a bit of a forward-looking view. If you saw the Adepticon panel, we showed so much stuff in that panel, just to give you an idea of like all the plans we had, all the work we'd put into this line and where things were going. That was like an 18 to almost 24 months look. So we're now going to kind of zoom in, focus on the things that are like more in the immediate future. We're going to give you some updates on how everything that we showed in raw sculpt form looks. Talk about the design, development process, the art, all of the fun things that goes into that, and just kind of get a good view of what's coming through approximately May of next year. So, with that said, let's just dive right into our first look. And we're
You have forgotten to introduce us, sir.
I will not. This is day 2. The introductions have already happened.
It's at the bottom.
You weren't even here.
I wasn't here on day 1.
That's true. Fine.
Correct.
Introduce yourself, Plumber, since you
Just
skipped
you.
out on day 1.
Fair enough. I'm Michael Plummer. I am a senior game developer here at Atomic Mass Games.
Okay, that's it. Everyone else.
No, you had to
Got
introduce
there.
yourself now. You made such a big deal about it.
Simone, head of studio.
You
This
didn't even
guy.
give him the last name. That's it. That's
Look,
it.
did
I'm
you
wa-
need my last name?
And who are you, sir? Who are you,
Dallas.
sir? Dallas. Yes, there we go. All right. So, with that all said, now can we get started? That you've derailed the entire presentation with
Let me
with your
consider.
intros.
Yes. Yes. Now.
Now's the time.
Now.
I will not intro
Not
myself
then.
because it's weird. I did it yesterday at the roadmap, and I was like, why am I introing myself? You intro the whole thing. It's just like whatever. Just read the bottom thirds. Stop looking over here, Ann, with that judgy face. All right.
Oh, gosh.
We're done with this.
I just caught the tail end of that and it hurt.
All right. So, with that said, let's look at our first. I'm just excited to get this box because this is one of my favorite Star Wars characters. But we're going to be taking a look at Plo Koon, Clone Commander Wolf, and the 104th Clone Troopers with the Wolf Pack.
Wolfpack?
Wolf Pack! Woof woof! I don't know if they
Haven't
do
heard
that,
that
but
one
they
in a minute.
should.
Should.
They really should. So obviously, another big thing about this this squad pack here is that it is going to be the official release of Padawan Ahsoka Tano. We stuck Padawan Ahsoka Tano in with this pack because we wanted to kind of reference the idea that Plo Koon and her do have a pretty strong relationship. He, of course, is the one who brings her into the Jedi Order and serves as kind of a side mentor.
Some of my
When-
favorite episodes of Clone Wars.
Yeah.
actually.
Like, whenever she's like, I don't know if this Anakin guy knows what she's talking about.
Yeah.
She's like, Plo, is that right? And he's like,
No.
It's true, he doesn't.
It's fine.
so with that, this pack, really exciting. Dallas, walk us through, well, I think specifically, let's do the Commander Wolf, because I know that one was one that you drew, and Marco looked at it, and he was like, what are you doing?
I mean, it's always like that, right?
Not always.
It's like, what are we doing? Well, the question is always like when we're designing a miniatures, like, you know, there's always like that bell curve of like, you want somebody like kind of stoic, and then you want somebody super actiony, and you want mainly the big in between. And it was kind of fun, like having like, you know, Commander Wolf like doing that side,
The John Woo style, like,
style.
little Star Wars
Like
doves in the
action.
background.
Oh, that'd be amazing. Just doves behind him. Marco, give me some doves.
Avian agenda.
Avian agenda hashtag.
It's always there.
But it was weirdly one of those ones that was like quite easy to figure out because the captains and the arcs wear those skirts, right? So we were pretty easily able to get that engineered in a way. It's got a pretty chunky key that just plugs into the base, and you just get this really nice, like you got your crouchy trooper and your, you know, hunchy trooper giving covering fire. And
I think, like,
Commander
of
Wolf
all
is
the
just going
clones that
for
we've
it.
done so far, the Wolfpack poses are my favorite.
Yeah.
They just,
Oh, absolutely.
they're pretty still, but you can feel,
you feel them.
you feel like the combat, you feel the situation.
Running clone is still.
I do really like the running
in the
212.
Obi-Wan. Yeah.
That
That clone
That
is
was good.
so good.
He's really good, but I don't know. There's something about the Wolf
The
packs.
3 of these together are.
It might also be because it's my favorite clone color scheme too,
that's
so
true.
they just look really good. But let's
Chick is never biased.
Never, not once.
Never
100%. I am biased all the time.
Wow.
I have a favorite child, and I let them know all the time because it is a competition.
I have a favorite child, and I tell Zane it's not him.
Exactly. Just keep him
Wow.
guessing, right? All right. So moving on from the clone characters that are in that pack, let's talk about the star of the show. Let's talk about Jedi Master Plo Koon. Simone, would you like to give us a little insight on his art? His wonderful art?
Because I realize this is the first time we have been on camera together, also with Dallas, where we get to talk about the art direction.
Yeah.
For
go nuts.
Shatterpoint.
That's awesome.
So obviously, for Shatterpoint, we really wanted to go much more leaning into the Clone Wars animated series. So we were so excited to kind of work on what that style would look like. Plo is such an awesome representation of that. I do want to mention that this fine Plo was done by Chris Bures.
Chris Bures.
We wanted to get that animated feeling, that style. This is a much different look for us, and I have absolutely loved how we've kind of put these together, and you're really getting the feeling of all of the characters through their art pieces.
Mm-hmm. You going to talk a little bit about that pose there, Dallas?
Yeah, I mean, it's. I love. Simone said it right. It's like it's capturing the feeling of the characters, not necessarily a one-to-one replica of the character. Like in miniature, we can't do that at all. So getting that, and Preston, when we were doing the poses, we did. We've talked lots of times. Like we might do like 8 poses, and we kind of like refine from there. We might be like, well, take the torso of A and the legs of C, put those together, and then iterate 5 more times off that idea. Preston came in pretty hot with, he wanted that classic, there's a pose, right, where he's kind of doing this two-handed, there's a piece of art, and he's doing like this two-handed tilt down kind of thing, and we tried it a couple times in sculpt, and it just wasn't quite jiving with the sculpt, and like it
looked good in 2D, not so much in 3D.
It felt really weird once you like got the miniature in your hand and you spun it around. You could get one perfect angle out of it, but it just felt weird. So we did like a quick adjustment. Marco came in and we got that saber down. So he's still doing the blocking. It's still that feel of Plo Koon, right? That defensive mentorship.
You want to know that he's going to defend you no
Yes.
matter where you are, and he is.
Plo Koon will always defend your heart.
I mean,
Correct.
not just your heart, but your entire body. So let's use that as a great segue into his
The heart
actual
is the center of
stats.
the body.
It is. It's true.
Very true.
But the overall pose really works well with where we went with the character in dev and design. We wanted to really emphasize, the times where we see Plo Koon, especially his like little mini arc in Clone Wars, he is all about, you're not expendable to me, you're not just clones. Like he goes the extra mile to show his troops that he does truly care about their welfare, that he is willing to make sacrifices for their protection, and we really like leaned into that with how he plays. This makes him an interesting pairing with Obi-Wan, who's also very defensive.
Absolutely.
But Plummer, talk a little bit about the identity and where everything went going on.
I want to just Qualistarian. I think Jedis can switch hands.
You think ambidextrous? I mean, Plo could be.
Plo could definitely.
Plo can do anything.
Thank you. How many forms of lightsaber combat does Ahsoka know? Like 5.
Several.
Several.
I'm not gonna say a number because I don't want to get called out for being wrong.
That's the
I'll
dumb
go
answer
with
right
7.
there. I have not done the research on that yet.
I will,
so I'm gonna say
I will
7.
happily be wrong.
More than one.
But going back to Plo Koon, I think for me one of the trademarks of the character of Plo Koon is that he has this very controlled and metered optimism, and it's never unrealistic. But he's always believes that if we work together, we will get through this. And we definitely wanted to capture that in what he does on the table, how he supports his troops and his friends. And you can see it throughout his card. He adds a lot of support for Padawans and trooper miniatures. He extends his defense to those who are fighting with him and keeps them alive, and it helps to propel him into the fight as well. So Plo Koon actively wants to defend people to get himself closer to the fight. That is what he does, and he's always charging into the battle for the purpose of getting as many people out alive as possible.
Yeah, I really liked where we wound up with his tactic ability. If we work together, right? Because it works with kind of like any Galactic Republic, but then we zoned in on the fact that like Plo really, he's a mentor, so Padawans, and then of course troopers with the clone trooper like tie-in, giving him that extra push, and then of course the identity I think was the one that it's weird to say, the identity always defines the character, but
It
for
does.
him, like it's a huge chunk of text on his card, and it is probably the biggest balance point that we had the whole testing was how do we take an idea where he can step in and actually like defend for the character that's being attacked, and make it so that you want to do it with him, because it's not always a great idea to have your primary take all the damage,
Correct.
but also that it wasn't like so overpowered that you're just like I'm not going to attack anyone but Plo.
Yeah, if I remember correctly, this identity, I think, has gone through more iterations than any other identity we've made up to this point. Maybe.
Amidala might have. Padme's,
You know what?
Padme's
You're right.
identity went through a
Padme
lot,
changed a lot as well, but man, Plo Koon, I remember writing this one a lot of times and finally getting to the place we're happy.
From a very simple design concept of he protects his friends by defending for them, and then watching, and that's the fun of design versus development.
Yep.
I get to write down. He defends his friends by making the defense rolls for them, and then Plumber's like, all right, and then it's like 6 months of iterations on that simple concept of how it works. And
Yeah,
like,
I mean,
well,
I think
you know,
the process is generally that you give me a cool idea, and then for the next 6 months I ask you, why did you do this to me?
yeah, well,
and then it works out.
that's just how we go. And then, of course, his
Marco
stances.
can relate to your problems.
Yeah, exactly. This is just how game design, development, sculpting, everything works.
That's correct.
All of it.
It's just it all rolls downhill eventually.
He's doing a cool backflip with the lightsaber, like swinging from his
Yeah.
left hand, and then his right hand. And Marco's like, "What are you doing? What does this mean?" I'm like, "I don't know. Figure it out.
Figure it out.
Sounds
Just a
cool."
little sketch. And then, of course, his stances. He's not with many of the characters. He's kind of in that Luminar bent where he doesn't do all the damage, but he has a lot of really great. He's got good enough output. He has pretty solid expertises, and so he kind of pulls it together. I think the most interesting one is his Form 3, the fact that it only has 5 dice.
Yes.
But the expertise on the defensive
expertise.
is like so good.
Yeah, it's
right.
insane.
So it's kind of a trade-off there, but a very fun character. I'm really happy that it came out. I think he does great justice, obviously, to the Plo that we see in the show. And I'm interested to see how he kind of shakes up the Galactic Republic meta.
He's just really fun to play too.
So let's move away because we were talking about this whole roadmap is beyond the Fall of the Jedi. So let's move beyond the Fall of the Jedi. Let's dive into one of, I think, the most exciting reveals for many people at AdeptCon, which was the fact that we are moving early next year, into the Galactic Civil War era. And we're, of course, kicking that off with a Jedi Knight Luke Skywalker pack, which is themed around their rescuing of Han Solo from Jabba's palace.
Yep.
And, of course, the Darth Vader pack, which I had the joy of painting last night on stream. So let's talk a little bit more about this stuff. Just give us an overview of the visual design, the sculpting. Let's
Can you
start
hear
there.
The horns?
The horns?
I can just hear the music.
Yeah?
The sun, two suns raising.
yeah, okay, yeah.
Horn swelling. As
All I
sing these.
remember from that scene when I watched it as a kid for the first time on network television, because that's how I saw all the original Star Wars shows, because I'm
They are movies.
semi
sir.
that old. It was a show on TV.
Yeah. If it's on TV, there's commercials.
Cracking
It's a
up over
show.
there.
If there's commercials, it's a show.
Was when Luke, when he shows up and he's all in darkness and shadow, my little kid brain was like, why is Darth Vader visiting Jabba the Hutt? I don't understand. So I totally made it. Anyway, visual design discussion.
Obviously, most important is we do have to discuss that R2 is in his bar droid
Bar 2D2?
situation.
Bar
It is
2D2.
phenomenal. A+. Thank you.
He's serving drinks.
Yeah.
Lando's in disguise. He's about ready to pull that mask down so we can all see. Oh my gosh, it's Lando! Oh, shock!
So much disguise. I mean, how do we even recognize R2? He's not a bartender normally.
It's true. That
How
could
do
be
you know
anyone.
what he does in his off time?
Number one, he has no off time. He is a hero of the rebellion.
Somebody's got to serve sweet refreshments.
There are other droids for that.
All right. And then there's a bunch of options. I mean, we're just gonna move on.
Wow.
There are a bunch of options when it comes to both Boosh and Luke Skywalker, but Boosh does get the most. Boosh Leia,
She gets
she's got
a head option.
and she's got a hand option as well because she can hold the thermal detonator or she cannot.
Yeah.
And I just need to say, Boosh is like the coolest thing in Return of the Jedi. It was very formative for me as a young person. It was the first time I experienced the bait and switch. Like when that helmet came off, I was like, "What?"
It's
To this
Leia!
day, I will never forget that moment.
Someone that loves you, and you're just like, ugh.
Yeah.
And then Luke Skywalker. It's always fun. I think these are some of my favorite stories of working on any of the properties we work on, but Star Wars especially. We were like, okay, we're gonna do the Jabba like rescue pack, and you're like, great. And then we started talking about, but he has to look like we want the Vader and the Luke to pair together, so you can kind of like reenact on your shelf
those two
that
packs to go together.
you want to see that classic Death Star throne room
Somebody
like
might
duel
wanna
scene.
make a diorama
And then all of a
or
sudden,
something.
like you come in, you're like, we can't do this. It's not gonna work. And I was like, what are you talking about? He's like, Luke changes clothes somewhere between one time in that movie. So he has a very different tunic from the Jabba like Tatooine stuff to when he's like actually at Endor and then on the Death Star. And so instead of like getting locked into one thing, we were just like, screw it, we'll just let you pick.
Yeah, and so we got 2 torso options. So you can do the Jabba's palace or the Emperor's throne room kind of Luke. R2, you can do the drinks with or without.
But why without?
I did mine without, weirdly. I know.
Choices.
Bush has choices, and then Lando has a head choice, I believe.
Yeah, you can do him with the disguise or without. So basically, like, all of them can be either disguised or not, unless you're Luke Skywalker, in which case you just roll in like being like, I'm Luke Skywalker.
Well, I mean, if you're
I don't
Luke
dress up.
Skywalker-
The whole point, though.
Was he?
To come in as himself, yes.
like
well,
wearing a little
everybody
tie.
else is in
Obviously,
disguise.
that's
We
Luke
don't have
Skywalker's
the time
wearing
here
a
to
tunic.
debate the whole like what rescue plan was actually happening with these people, but we can discuss that later. Maybe tonight when we do our little
Oh,
hangout.
it does feel
I
like
would, I, and
There's
I would
no
like to
plan.
discuss that
There's no
later.
plan. There's no plan.
it's
There's
like
no
5D chess. Like, I think R2D2 was the only one that had the full plan.
R2D2 is always the only one who knows what's going on. That's it.
R2D2 is the
Just
main
how it works.
character. He knows
100%.
everything.
Let's dive in and talk a little bit about how Boushh Leia Organa works within the game. Though we'll do a little card spoiler here.
Yeah, Boushh is really cool. This whole kit is really fun because
Because you did all the initial designs on it.
I mean, there's that, but I was going to say because we got to play with for the first time with the ever-present Star Wars trope of the characters dressing up like someone they're not and sneaking in somewhere, and that's just a really fun idea. And again, that bait and switch when I was a kid blew my mind. So we definitely wanted to play with that here, and we really wanted this Leia to be different than the other Leias, and this one absolutely just had to kick some butt. So Boushh is a very aggressive secondary character with some pretty intense control abilities with low blow, some good maneuvering for herself or for her allies with fan out. And then, of course, I want 50,000 no less is really fun if you can get that attack off and force your opponent to spend a force so that you don't gain an additional momentum. The stance name is Rough and Tumble, and that's exactly what Leia Organa Boushh is.
Yeah.
She's here to get in the fight and help you win.
Yeah, I really like where this version came out. I very much enjoy the fact that, we started with spy tags on a lot of these because they're in disguise and they're undercover, and how we were, spoilers for things we're not going to talk about necessarily today, but how that translated into a lot of the Galactic Civil War like rebellion stuff.
Yeah.
And we always talk about, when you start working on a new era or a new thing, you want to think about what seeds am I planting? How is that garden going to grow? Where are we going with this? And you try to make sure that everything has a purpose. And sometimes you wind up with things that you thought were a good idea at the time, and then you realize you never went back to, and you're like, well, it's not an inaccurate tag, but it doesn't need to be there.
Yeah, for sure. And especially with these are like the first Rebel Alliance characters that we're doing. So this kind of lays the bed for how the Rebel Alliance is going to work and like what the feel of that group of characters is going to be. And I think that's really important when you're designing characters in this game, is to make sure that there's a consistent flow between the people that generally work together in the canon that also fits its way into the game. And then there are some neat surprises too when these spies work with these spies and et cetera, et cetera.
That's going to be it for our look at this pack for the moment. But if you are interested, we are doing a little panel about how we create characters and how we go through the whole design process and everything. So there might be some more cool looks there. So watch for that one. That is tomorrow. Yeah, tomorrow.
Sounds like
Tomorrow?
Yeah,
Tomorrow in the afternoon, I believe. So moving on to the Darth Vader pack, Fearless and Inventive. Obviously, the emergence of the Galactic Empire in its full glory here, and I think, Darth Vader himself is a key and very cool character. Really, this one was important for how it defines the Imperial Troopers, with the quintessential Stormtrooper and everything else. So we'll dive into those rules here in a second, but I just want to give Simone and Dallas a moment to talk about the design thoughts, the artwork, and everything else that went into it.
First off, I think I think these stormtroopers are just like perfect stormtroopers.
They are what you think of
Yeah.
when you think of a stormtrooper.
Especially sassy captain here.
I love sassy captain.
Like that pose is straight off of a movie still. Like we just like sometimes you draw something and sometimes you just go back to the source and you're just like, that stormtrooper back there in the background, that is doing stormtrooper stuff, and we need that in the game. And then the Vader himself is definitely inspired by concept art, and we really wanted that like big billowy coming down against, like Schick mentioned earlier, a lot of times we try to, these characters are not in a vacuum by themselves. It's not like today we only work on Vader and then we finish Vader and then we're like, now we do the Stormtrooper. We might be working on 2 or 3 packs, 4 packs, sort of at a time, and you start to think about how these interactions work. That's how dev works too, right? Like that's why things are grouped together. So you have Luke, you have Jedi Knight Luke, you have Lord Vader. Well, what's your favorite word?
Tableau.
Tableau. You have to create a tableau. So you tableau them, and you know the
Tableau them so hard.
The Luke pose was very iconic. That arms up, horizontal, protective, defensive block, and you needed a Vader to match that. So he couldn't be doing like the concept art has him like kind of like forward sword. You needed that Vader, two-handed, powerful strike. But then, like, you wanted the cape, and so that's how he came about to and then just that stormtrooper is like this guy right here. I know they can't see it.
It's
one.
okay.
It might be
it's
on
that
there.
one.
It's the
They don't need to know
It's the
which
one not
one.
firing directly from the hip.
Not
If
firing
what you're
from
saying
the-
is true, they know which one it is.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a stormtrooper pose. So, and I love these stormtroopers. Painted by Brendan Roy. All this stuff is painted by Brendan Roy.
And let's talk more. I love how you just tee up everything. I don't know if you're doing it on purpose, but it's great. Let's talk specifically about some of the stormtrooper design and development. So I know in a lot of Star Wars media, right, we see stormtroopers as like they always miss. They're not very scary. They're kind of just bowling pins for the heroes to knock down. And while that's important for the stories that you're telling, right? Star Wars is at its core mostly high action adventure. It is like the heroes getting one up on the evil empire. It's not, it's not good for your for your story meant for like your mythology, right? To have your heroes like run in and get like shot to death by a bunch of blaster fire.
True.
Because the professional stormtroopers who are well trained would do that. Right?
That being
They're
said,
gonna miss.
it's not a great game experience if you're playing the Galactic Empire and you have stormtroopers
and it
they
doesn't
just
feel
literally
scary.
can't do anything.
Or anything like at all.
That's not games.
So with that in mind, right, one of the design goals I had, because you took over the Luke squad, I took over the Vader squad for initial designs. One of the big things I wanted was I wanted the stormtroopers to feel like the lore presents them, right? Like this inexorable force. They are not particularly as elite as the clones, but they know what they're doing. They are capable and they are scary, and they're not people that like, you think about the kind of the joke that the stormtroopers become. Why does a rebel trooper run away from them? Like, just like stand in the open and shoot at me, you'll never hit me, right? That's not the reality if you're not Luke Skywalker, if you're not Princess Leia, if you don't have the plot armor. So I really wanted to make them feel like this aggressive, inexorable force. And so, yes, only Imperial stormtroopers are so precise, and that's not a joke. We also kind of leaned into the idea that the Empire it's willing to throw things into the meat grinder. So one of the cool seeds we planted here, whereas the spy tag kind of came out a lot in the Rebel Alliance stuff later, was the idea that a lot of the Empire stuff deals damage to itself or its allies in order to get extra benefits.
I think the thing that you really nailed in this set of units is the idea that the Galactic Empire has this ruthless efficiency and that they do a lot. The movement abilities and the extra stuff you get to do is on par with some of the early CIS units and what they do with the droids and things, but it costs you, and you can't do it forever, and it feels very right to play.
Well, and then we tied in, and I mean the other cool thing was we tied in the idea that okay, we know all their abilities kind of deal this extra damage. Let's on their combat tree create characters that can heal that damage, so you can start to play this resource management game with your Imperial forces that is like, okay, I'm going to take my damage here, but if I can get to this result in my combat tree, I can give a little like pat and take it off. And the Stormtrooper Sergeant really excels at that. We decided to make the Stormtroopers themselves kind of the heavier hitters in the box. Spoiler, they are the 4-point cost instead of the 3-point cost. And the Sergeant really is there to like be sassy in the back and say, keep going, do better.
Yep.
Right? He's got a lot of recovers on his chart. So he kind of takes off the damage that both Vader and the Stormtroopers in this squad want to put on each other.
And it builds this interesting counterplay when you're playing against them of trying to figure out where your attacks need to
Dying
land.
over here?
I'm sorry. I just had the stormtrooper sergeant is the Anne of the squad. Just like I'm just trying to keep all this together.
Just trying to keep you from doing too much psychic damage to each
Vader's
other.
doing
Please
stuff.
stop.
These stormtroopers are just everybody just come back. We have a mission and a goal.
I was just saying, I think there's an interesting play against that style where your opponent needs to kind of decide where they're going to put their resources, where they're going to spend their attacks, where they're going to spend their abilities to try and shut down that power. And you need to decide, like, am I going to try and stop what's coming immediately, or am I going to try and capulate on the move that you just made to gain advantage to turn it into advantage for myself? And it asks a lot of really interesting questions at the table.
Yeah, they're very cool.
Yeah, they're fun.
All right, so let's jump into some more of the Galactic Civil War stuff and everybody's favorite murder bears, the Ewoks.
Yeah, Ewoks.
Look at them.
These were so much
Look
fun.
at them.
Obviously,
Love them.
you know, we were very much at the time thinking about the 40th anniversary of Return of the Jedi, and we had kind of targeted an initial window for this year, which is that big anniversary. But production realities and the way that just kind of like logistics and everything else works, they shifted a little bit out. But, you know, I think it's really cool to start with this really strong like single movie theme. And that meant that we got Ewoks like right away. So we're going to see a primary version of Leia in this squad.
That's correct.
We have also 2 different secondaries in this pack. And this is the Ichi-Wima pack, I believe we all determined, which is maybe my favorite name because it's just nonsense. But it actually means something. I can't remember exactly what it was, but I think
Did
it's
you
like
learn
a
Ichiwama?
yeah.
Oh, man.
I found it when I was like looking for Ewok.
I think
Ewok
Ichiwama
stuff.
is celebrate the victory.
Maybe.
I know it celebrates something.
I feel like it's startled because Yub-Nub is the.
Is it?
I did not.
Regardless,
read
you
that
can.
phrase book.
Yeah.
You can type in Ichi-Wima and it will
Ichiban
tell you.
ramen.
there you go.
Ichiban. I'm in for that.
While we were looking at this Leia art, and I was just sort of glaring at you for a moment, that is like literally the face I make all the time at you.
I think that they did send you. I think they did send a portrait of
Yeah.
like make the expression this. She's just like, come on.
Yeah.
I mean, this is the look she gives Han after he does anything.
Correct.
And he deserves it.
Oh wow.
100%.
And of course, this pack also has some very cool Ewok hunters. In it.
Oh, actually, comment in chat. There are not 2 secondaries in this pack. There are 2 primaries in this pack.
This one? Oh,
Yeah.
is that Chirpa?
Yeah, I think that's
and
Chirpa.
Poplu.
I think it's
It's
Chirpa
the
and
next
Leia
one that has 2
with Poplu,
secondaries.
yeah.
Spoiler for ahead of
Spoiler.
time. I know. So you also have Chief Chirpa as a different primary, so you can play all the Ewoks with the next pack that we're going to look at. Or you can mix and match your Rebels and your Ewoks to have some fun. This pack's really cool. And the next one is the one that actually comes with the Trappers, right?
Let's see. I can't see the picture well. The Trappers have...
Because they have the spears.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, you're
Yeah.
correct.
So let's jump into the Yub-Nub pack. Yub-Nub introduces Logray as the primary. It has 2 options for secondaries. You have Wicket, and you have the second version of R2-D2, who comes with his counterpart C-3PO.
Correct.
The Golden God. That pair it's really fun. They're combining them together and the stuff that we did. And if you want to learn more about them specifically, you can come to that character creation panel. We're going to dive into them and kind of how the idea came to put them on the same base and everything else that worked out with it. But yeah, so talk about this Ewok art, this crazy,
Gary
adorable
Daniels
Ewok
did
art.
an awesome job capturing Logray in there. He is so adorable, but also I'm a little afraid of him.
I mean, you should be.
I mean, he's got red eyes.
Look at these Ewoks jumping out of the trees
Yeah.
to like ambush you. Little Wicket leaping over the branches.
His little toes.
Logray standing there, shamanesque and powerful, pointing forward, leading the charge. And then there's C-3PO being C-3PO.
I mean, you know, he's just worried, and R2's like
He's
bumping
so
him along.
worried.
Yeah.
Doddering along.
He's a lot on his mind. He's a god right now. There's a lot to deal with.
The other interesting thing with doing the Ewoks and stuff, I think, is that you'll notice that the Ewok, like Logray and everyone else, they don't have the Rebel Alliance tag. So we kind of like created this good guy interior faction that was Ewok based, right at the same time as we were kind of exploring what the Rebel Alliance was. And knowing that, canonically they would mix together and everything, it was a very interesting, and I really like where we came out with that. And marketing has already given me too many death glares, so we're not going to really dive into spoilers that are not allowed when it comes to that. But I think we wound up in a very cool spot. Yeah. A lot of what Plummer did to kind of like work through the dev and design process with them. Very, very cool. We're going to talk about Logray, though, because this card is on the screen.
Ewoks are just a lot of fun, and I think that Logray is one of the linchpins of Ewoks. One of the things you'll first notice when you look at the card is he has a durability of 2, which means that if he gets 2 wounds after that next activation, he's going to be defeated, very similar to Maul in the core box. So that's something you need to deal with when you're playing the Ewoks, but if you read the rest of his card, you'll notice that they do a lot. There's a lot happening on this card. There are a lot of inbuilt synergies and a lot of out-of-activation movies. Ewoks are fast, and they want to hit the first struggle and just win it as hard as they can and try to roll into the second one, but in a prolonged fight, they tend to fall apart a little bit, which is what we wanted for them because they're in the woods trying to catch you off guard.
Yeah, you watch the way the movie works, right? And the whole like thrust of the battle is they pop out of the woods, they do very well, they meet actual resistance, they kind of crumble, and then Chewbacca steals the AT-ST and the rebels kind of come in and they bolster the forces. But without those kind of couple of moments, the Imperials inevitably win. And I think, like you mentioned, that was one of the really awesome things in playtest, was watching how the Ewoks jumped to this really early lead, and you're like...
And you're on the other side of the table just terrified, like, oh no, what am I going to do?
And then all of a sudden, it's like they start dropping, and they start getting wounds, and now all of a sudden they can't do their stuff. And they're not particularly like durable in that way. And so, as the Ewok player, you really have to either embody that hit, strike, and fade mentality. You have to have a plan for it.
Correct.
And even going against the Ewoks, you have to kind of like be like, okay, I'm not going to lose hope because they're going to jump early.
Yeah, but it also adds that question though, like, because if you could stop the Ewoks from winning that first struggle, you're in a really good spot. But it's really hard to stop the Ewoks from winning that first struggle. So you ask yourself, like, do I go for it, or do I just let them have the first one? And that right there, you're on tilt from turn 1.
And
I am, at least.
Secret ingredients.
It's that mental game.
Yeah, absolutely.
And Logray's secret ingredients. You mentioned him being the linchpin of the Ewok force. I think that identity is really what does it, because
for sure
now your Ewoks, depending on their tags, are getting all these different kind of like abilities, but also they're able to heal, or they're able to advance. Refresh a force or advance, all that kind of stuff. Paired with Chirpa, you can make this really interesting kind of stuff. Or you can take Leia, and Leia kind of linchpins the idea of the Rebel Alliance and the Ewoks together. And it's very cool. So there's a lot of really neat synergies within the 2 squads, but also a lot of potential to kind of create your Endor force the way you envision it.
Yeah, there's a lot you can do with the Ewoks and a lot of really fun strike teams you can build.
All right, we've talked a lot about game design and dev. It's time to get into...
I have to get prepared. I'm not ready for the next slide.
Just let me know. Just let me know. Take a breath.
Everybody center themselves.
This is the Simone Elliott hot minute right here.
Okay, I think we're ready.
Boom.
You all know how much I love Hondo. Here he is. Look at this splash art. It was so awesome to work with Preston and kind of, especially in the core box, being able to get some of those more bigger things. We can see everything that's happening. I love this Hondo situation. I love Grievous just hanging out in the back. Just a casual Grievous. He's fine.
A little behind the pack, but he's letting the troops do their stuff. Yeah.
He knows that Hondo isn't that...
He's in a perfect place to scuttle if need be.
That's true. Yeah.
Correct. This art is by Simone Bonafantino from Tomato Farm. I just wanted to say that.
You just wanted to say Tomato
Look,
Farm.
I have it on a post-it note, friends.
I really like how his Kowakian monkey lizard friend is like holding on for dear life. And he kind of looks peeved, like, how dare you do this to me?
Yeah. But really...
But he's getting away with the booty.
That's what matters.
Some kind of glowy box, yes.
It's very important.
Well, his brave crew holds back the droid forces.
Is he going to share
but the real question
of
is
the glowy box?
So we made a cool piece of Hondo art, to make
That
a cool
was the
piece
whole
of
point.
Hondo
We're going to
art.
spend the next 25 minutes
But
talking
it actually
about it.
does. It actually. Oh, okay. Well, keep going then.
No, I'm done.
That's fine. I'll just
Keep
finish my
going.
coffee.
Like, we'll just go. But we did make this art for a specific purpose, and that was as the cover of the second mission pack for Star Wars Shatterpoint, which is aptly named Sabotage Showdown.
Yep.
Plummer, you want to walk us through a little bit about what people can expect from this mission pack?
Yeah, Sabotage Showdown is the second of 3 mission packs that we started playtesting initially. And if the first mission is a very spread out battle across the entire table, Sabotage Showdown kind of closes the iris on the battlefield a little bit and centralizes the struggle. It's
a death donut.
It's a death donut, yeah. It's
That is accurate. Wow.
things escalate quickly in Sabotage Showdown in a very satisfying way, and the play feel is very different from shifting priorities. And I think that the coolest thing about this mission is if you're looking at the cards, you can see that there is some text on the bottom of one of them, and the way that it interacts with your Shatterpoint activation every turn. The kind of crux of this mission, like the special thing about it, is that when you activate a unit with a Shatterpoint determined by the mission cards, whether it's a secondary supporting, it's just when you activate with the Shatterpoint card, that unit gains a tactic ability. So a lot of the times when you pull your Shatterpoint, you really want to do your primary, but doing your 5-0 first would be better. But they need to heal before they do the thing. Well, now sometimes they're going to get to. So by giving characters a new tactic whenever they're activated with a Shatterpoint, it really opens up the options for what you do with your Shatterpoint, because you can get that bonus no matter who you activate, and maybe that's what opens up the ability to use them to the most effect. It's very interesting, and it's very different from the first mission.
Yeah, I like how, and as they'll see eventually when we get to the third mission pack, how things build on each other, right?
Yes.
And there's an article that's going to be coming out that kind of discusses the mission packs in general, especially it takes a look at this one that you'll see on the website, I think, in the next couple weeks. But one of the biggest things, when you're looking at creating a game like Shatterpoint, where you're laying foundations, you want to make sure that players have enough time to adjust to all of the different variables, and that they can kind of learn the system before you start adding more to it. And I really like how the mission packs build on each other and introduce these different concepts. With this one having a specific Shatterpoint thing, the third mission pack has its own kind of unique twist on it. And each one also emphasizes different strategies and options. And the idea that when you're building your strike team, you have to account for the mission pack you're taking eventually, but also the mission pack that your opponent could take.
Yep.
So am I building a strike team that just excels at my mission pack and I'm hoping that I'll always get to play that? Am I thinking about what the field represents? And as those things grow, the complexity grows as well. And it's going to be really exciting to see how players kind of like work with that. And you're not going to have to wait very long, because this mission pack is going to release November 3rd. Again, we wanted to give kind of like that little bit of window where players could learn the game, become very proficient at what the original core box game was asking, and then start throwing like additionals on and different thoughts. And as far as like the mission packs themselves, these are kind of the way that the standard base experience is explored. But we have a lot of cool ideas that are coming for more ways. As always, we talk about this in every panel.
Cultivated garden.
But yeah, we want different
Six
like
garden.
areas. Please don't call it my garden.
Six
the
garden.
Shatterpoint garden. We want these different ways of playing. So more narrative, more asymmetric, all of that stuff. It is coming, but there's a very important pacing that we feel is really important to that stuff. It doesn't just mean because we haven't talked about it that you don't. It's not in the works.
Yeah, it's happening.
But yeah, there's so many different places to go. It is Plummer's current.
That's my current. Why are you doing this
right
to
now?
me?
Yeah, his current stress right now is working at all these cool ways to expand the game experience and all of that stuff. So new Sabotage Showdown mission pack number 2, November 3rd. Can't wait to see what players do with it and how it influences a lot of just the squad packs that are out previously, the squad packs that will be coming with this and after this. So I think we're going to see some interesting shakeups in terms of just the meta and the community itself.
Absolutely.
As every mission pack always does, and is what makes them so stressful to
I'm
work
getting
on.
ahead of the story, so I'm just excited.
Okay.
Oh.
Well, sorry.
I was like, Simone's like ready to drop some dev details on this.
No.
mission.
She's going. No,
No,
she
I'm
just.
not.
So obviously, we can't tease Hondo art without actually showing
Look at
the man
that.
himself with his pirate crew. One Hondo Inaka. Just go ahead. Just go.
This is
Gush.
like a Padme moment where I have no words again.
But there are no tears, so it's not a Padme moment.
I mean,
That is true. Hondo does not make me cry. He brings the joy out.
Yet.
yeah. I mean, you're ready to like. He's given the speech in the tavern about why you should join his crew.
Correct.
And you're in.
I've already joined.
Yeah, you're just like,
I saw
don't
him and
know
I'm
when
like,
I signed
this
up,
pose
but here I am.
immediate.
Here I
Yeah.
am.
That was when I think we did only 3 poses,
Correct.
and I like saw the 3, and I looked at him. I'm like, all right, I'm gonna send these to Shik and Simone, but I don't know why. And Simone was just like, hey, do A, and I was like, yeah, that's the one everybody likes. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's just immediate. Like, it's so Shatterpoint. It's so Saturday morning fun. Like, he's on the battlefield and he's just like, my friends, can't we just talk?
Yeah, it's
Like-
clearly he's like, I'm in a bad situation. Let me talk my way out of this.
What do you mean he's in a bad situation? Everything's under control.
That's right.
Well, this guy is running away with that.
There's a lot of pirates
Ice cream
panicking at this
maker,
moment.
yeah.
Oh,
He's
they're
just
all
like,
panicking for sure.
he's just like, the prophet. Come on.
Slander.
He wins. Don't worry, Plumber. He wins. He always wins. He always wins. For those wondering, this is a squad pack. It is separate from the Sabotage Showdown mission pack. Mission pack just happens to feature Hondo and his fabulous art that was created for it on there. He does come with a secondary Guarm, and of course he has his Weequay pirates. Designing these was super fun.
Yes.
Hondo has so many great quotes that, like, I find the level of enjoyment I have when designing characters, and I think this is true for you too.
100%.
Is like, how long is their good quote list? And if they have like so many good quotes, you're just like, I have all the
It's
ideas.
just so I have
And when you run
more
in,
quotes than I have,
have
space
space.
Exactly.
for rules.
Yeah.
and then when you run into a character that says like nothing, you really struggle because you're just like,
My favorite thing is when the quote is just long enough to fit on one
Oh, yeah,
line
yeah.
and doesn't go to a second line so I can fight for it. That's the best.
Perfection.
so. But yeah, a really fun box. Actually pairs exceptionally well with the Cad Bane box.
Yeah.
So if you want to play your Star Wars Scoundrels,
That's
the way I play.
that's just a mess, and it's so
Hondo-
fun. Like, what is happening?
Hondo and Cad Bane, you'll have the lowest force pool ever, and you'll never run out.
That is correct.
It's the best.
Uh-huh.
Like, you just show up to that table, and you're like, how many force do you get?
I remember the first time I played that with you, and I was like, what did we do?
It was amazing.
All the
I
right
played
things.
against that, and I was like, what the heck is going on
I know.
here?
Profit.
seem
That's what's going
ridiculous.
on. Nothing but profit when
And then
Hondo's
I
on the
immediately,
table.
I was just like, I need Hondo and Cad Bane ASAP.
Uh-huh.
And speaking of Scoundrels, so important to note, this Hondo, very specifically Clone Wars. Yes, we see a Hondo across all of Star Wars for the most part, but this one, the snapshot in time, is absolutely the Clone Wars era Hondo.
100%.
Kind of at the height of his pirate king powers. But let's go to Scoundrels in a different portion of the timeline and eras, and look at the fully painted and fully fleshed out now Mandalorian and Child Squad pack.
Yeah.
So if you watch the
I love this one.
that was the weirdest goat
very
noise ever.
You guys haven't heard my at home yet. That's my home.
Okay.
Sorry. I apologize for not using my work yet.
I
Thank
mean,
you.
it's just,
Keep
I
those
wasn't
separate.
entirely sure what direction that was going.
That's
to be fair.
pure
Like,
excitement.
I feel more close to you now, though, that you shared that with
Yeah.
us.
All-
And
everyone,
with
all of
everyone.
us.
So,
I know you love this IG-11 situation that we've got going here.
Yeah, that's true.
IG-11 is so cool. So cool. Has my favorite rule in Shatterpoint to date. 100%.
People can guess once they
Yeah,
finally
of
see the
course.
cards. And remember, all this stuff that we're looking at now, we're going into like spring of next year. Everything we looked at before with cards and spoilers and all that, you're looking at the beginning of next year. So we're moving into that future view. If you watched it at Adepticon, though, we mentioned that this Mandalorian and Child was actually the concept. It was the proof of concept.
Proof of concept. Yeah.
For what we thought we could do with a Star Wars miniatures game at scale, in stuff. He's not quite as stylized as the characters who are not wearing full like plate armor, but we were really looking at like scale, design, proportions, all of that stuff. So it was very exciting to see him finally painted up. I'm super thrilled to have him come into the game and to be able to do the season 1 stuff.
The evolution of, like, the initial nugget of Shatterpoint, right? It's like we started with Din Djarin and the Child, but then what really got this is the Shatterpoint look was Anakin. Like
Oh, absolutely.
we chose Anakin. Of course, you choose Anakin. I mean, like, that is Star Wars, right? And like, and that's where we figured out, like, exactly that style. Now, I still think Din fits in, but he's our first sculpt, not the first concept.
Correct.
The first concept is the other thing. Did we?
Nope.
Yeah.
It's the other thing. You don't have to worry about it, friends.
But he was our first sculpt, and like and this little squad is super cool. And the IG-11 with the blast behind the back, really showing that 360-ality of his combat protocols and stuff like that. And Grief Karga is just stoically just blasting fools with his pistols, like in that bar fight scene in the first season of The Mandalorian, just holding them off with his little cricket pistols.
His pow pows.
I love with IG, like, he is so fluid for a droid, especially in that, like, he just moves so well, and I think you caught that so well.
Blast, 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 blast.
Yep.
Those scenes are so fun.
They're so good. They're so good.
Yeah. So, of course, you can't have the Mandalorian and the child without somebody to pursue the Mandalorian and the child. So right alongside with them, of course, we're going to be doing Moff Gideon,
so
Dark
good.
Troopers with
These are
his
so
Death
cool.
Trooper as well. This Moff Gideon just, I mean, the scale looks great. Everything kind of like comes together. It's a very fun look. Excited for people to see what Gideon brings to the Imperial forces as well. He plays very cruelly with everyone else, or against everyone else.
And those Dark Troopers and Death, like, just gigantic and
The
awesome.
Death Trooper
yeah.
is huge.
The Death Trooper is huge.
Like you don't really appreciate how tall a 7-foot Death Trooper is until you kind of like
Until
put it
you make
into
it
scale
very small.
and you put it
Put him next to a Dark Trooper.
I was gonna say,
put him next to a Dark Trooper.
See, I was going in a different place. I was like, you don't appreciate how the size of a 7-foot Death Trooper until you put him next to a 5-foot Leia.
That's true. Yeah,
Like-
when you put him next to a 4'11"
4
Leia.
foot 11 inches,
4'11",
sir.
4'11", and you realize Leia is very small, especially compared to these giant things that do exist in Star Wars. You know, Anakin 6'2", 6'3".
Yeah.
You know, and Vader's 7 something.
Well, I mean, like the Death Trooper and Chewie are like eye to eye, basically. Like
Yeah.
that's the point at which you're like, that guy's really big.
That
Like
guy's
I
huge.
remember camming him and being like, he's too big,
Well,
right?
when we did Gar Saxon,
yeah. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, that man's a monster.
we
as
get
well,
the first
for
print of
sure.
Gar Saxon, and everybody walks in, and Shiga's like, "This prince is too." I like, you didn't even look. You're like, "That's too big."
Yeah.
I'm not looking at that.
It's
I'm
huge.
like, "That is his height, sir."
He's just a massive
He's
man.
tall.
He's just a massive
He is
Mandalorian man.
gigantic.
That's not it for the Imperial reinforcements that are becoming later in that year, or later in spring, as we did also show Iden Versio in Raw Sculpt. However, we wanted to show you all of the Inferno Squad as well as the Imperial Special Forces. This box has a couple of different options in it. You can choose Del Meeko as your supporting option, or you can choose the Imperial Special Forces as your option. I really love where Del Meeko went.
He's cool. A lot of fun.
And kind of how I think the challenge of saying, okay, you only get one character in the unit versus the 2 for supporting, like you did with the Inquisitors, right? The challenge became, okay, how, because as I was working on this stuff, I was like, how do you do that but not do what Plummer did that worked so well? Like sometimes you're challenging each other, similar to how the engineers and like the painters and stuff do it,
yeah,
or the
everybody's
artists, right?
challenging.
Like there's this interesting, it's not one-upsmanship, it's more like, he didn't screw it up. I almost swore. I almost lost it.
not
I almost
your
lost
one.
my
You get
one,
one.
and
You
I
get
don't
one.
want to use it here.
This is not the time.
No, it's not. It's not the time for my one. How do I do what they did so well, but not do the same thing, right? Like I don't want to copy your homework, but I want to make sure that I'm on par with it.
I think that's really fun about the single character supports is we see more of them. Like we've just found so many ways to make them different and still make them work, and I think that's been a really fun part of making Shatterpoint.
Yeah, and just having things work. It's always a blast to make a character like Gideon Hast, who's just a big old a-hole. And like how do you translate it in the rules and make it so he's just a jerk? And you're as you read his rules, you're like, this guy's just.
I don't want to
jerk.
be friends with
Like,
this guy.
I would never go out for a drink with this man.
No.
But he's gonna force you to.
Not even if
because
he's buying.
he's your commanding officer, and you will drink with him.
These miniatures all come with helmet options.
They
too.
do, yes.
So
So
you can, if you don't like
if
painting
you're
faces,
anti-painting faces, you just throw the cool helmets on them. That's what I do,
Done.
because the helmets are cooler.
the helmets are really really cool.
Like,
Yeah, they are.
They're just dope.
Also, this art, I love the little exclamation point above
The little
the
bloop.
ID.
You
Yeah.
can hear the bloop. Uh-huh. You've been spotted. And of course, we focused a lot on Empire. We focused a bit on New Republic. Let's dive real quick back and show the missing character from our OG
Yeah.
trilogy,
Yeah.
Han and Chewie. Of course, with the Rebel Commandos, kind of tying them back into that whole Return of the Jedi situation. Interestingly enough, this squad pack, though, well, it has an homage to that, is actually built from the idea that, this is like Han Solo as a Rebel operative, not necessarily fighting with Ewoks. So he fills a bit of that synergy gap of, I want to play Rebel Alliance. I don't necessarily want my Rebel Alliance to feel like they're specifically from Endor. What does that look like? So it's a bit of between the scenes kind of stuff. And that goes into how he's painted. If you're a costume aficionado, he's got a mixture of pant colors and jacket colors and everything else. And that's kind of to evoke the idea that this is not a Han Solo directly from the screen.
Shatterpoint Han Solo.
Yeah.
Everyman.
It's
He's
the everyman
absolutely
Han Solo? I don't think Han Solo has ever been described as an everyman.
Outside of
He has
his
now.
extreme handsomeness, he's an everyman.
Yeah.
And his charm,
And
his
his
wit.
and his exceptional luck score.
These commandos look super great.
Yeah.
Very stylized. And this Chewbacca is
The
just
Chewbacca.
Tearing apart that poor IG droid.
Just-
You got the Aven agenda and you have the anti-IG droid, it's
There's
just
a lot-
everywhere.
look,
there's a
there's
lot
a lot of
destroyed
agendas.
droids. I know. It's hard to keep track in this office with all of the agendas.
First off, there might
There
even be
is some-
secret agendas.
There is some anti-IG sentiment.
Ooh.
All I'm saying is, if you're an assassin droid, you might deserve it. Fair's fair.
Wow.
They're not the nicest droids.
They're not, except for one, IG-11.
True.
I mean, you can reprogram an IG droid to be whatever you want, apparently.
we gotta
You
get
just give it
past those
nanny programming
assassinations.
and go for
You
it.
gotta get past the assassination first.
So yeah, another, obviously, again, there's a bit of inspiration from Return of the Jedi, but this pack really creates, I think, for me, the cornerstone of generic Rebel Alliance and what that means for Shatterpoint and how those things kind of pop in, and it really builds out for more things. So real quiet squad pack, one of my favorites that we got to work on. I know that in your terrain building, your Shatterpoint terrain building, a lot of people were asking about a garage.
The garage. Everybody
The
wants to
garage.
know about this
Well,
garage.
I have great news.
Show 'em the
that
garage.
The garage officially announced now.
at that.
And not only is there a garage, but
There's-
going with another
Oh,
agenda,
Look.
there's a Simone Elliott creature request, and I'm just going to cede the floor
there
for
is
however long we're going to be doing this.
I'm just gonna tell everybody, from the very beginning, it was we decided there will be a thing with every terrain set.
Yep.
Yeah.
There's a little critter or droid, or something.
So, this is a Womp Rat. I want you all to understand there is one canon image of a Womp Rat, and it's like a nature documentary style, and it looks exactly like that. Look at the little feet. It's real creepy.
It's more the eyes, really.
No, the feet creep me out, and the eyes are just crazy.
the whole face is really crazy. Like
And
no
it's
one.
making a face. You can't see her.
I can only imagine that face on a space pizza children's arcade billboard where that animatronic sings you whatever the Star Wars version of Life Day birthday is.
Oh.
Happy Life Day, and it's just
Anyone who knows me knows I love possums and possum memes, and that Womp Rat has the biggest possum meme energy.
Oh, it
Just that
does.
screaming, terrified face I feel every morning.
Now I
That
feel
Womp
a little
Rat.
better about it.
There
I
you
would
go.
still shoot it.
Yeah,
And-
absolutely.
I mean, when you do see it, you're like, I understand why they bullseyed those.
Absolutely.
absolutely.
I know why they
100%.
bragged about it.
Just-
I would too.
I would.
I was wondering why they felt so positive about I shot those. Now I know. Real gross.
Yeah. So the garage. This is from going off the Womp Rat train, which honestly I knew we were going down that side road.
And just slide the slide over so no one can watch.
Yeah,
look
no
at
one
that
can
Womp Rat any
just
longer.
take the Womp Rat's eyes off
Thank
of
you.
people's screen. The garage was designed with the original terrain. It serves as a really great kind of linchpin for the rest of the train setup. I love how you get the double levels and how it connects into different things. Obviously, with a bit of hobby skill and time, you can customize it to do a lot of different things.
Oh yeah.
The little platform that crosses is movable, so you can put it kind of wherever you want, and everything can go in. So
It's a nice addition. I've played with it multiple times. It's a nice addition.
we've used it
Gives
on
you a
streams
center
for a
point.
couple of the games that
Yeah.
we've done. Yeah, it just gives you that. It gives you that kind of chunk of building that you need to base everything else off of. And I
It
think
gives you open space without being.
without being open,
Empty.
without being empty, for sure. So I'm excited to see what players do with this, how it kind of like changes table layouts and everything else. And it just kind of grows the fantastic Shatterpoint terrain so far that the team has been able to do on that.
And please post all of your painted womp rats. Thank you.
Oh my.
Wow.
Okay, there you go. Hashtag Shatterpaint, hashtag Womp the Rat.
Shatter rats.
Shatter Rats.
Shatter
Whoa.
rats.
Please no.
let's do the next one. Let's move
Please.
on.
Next.
I'm cutting the screen.
But there's still more. There's still more.
We're not done.
Yeah.
Behave.
We have
Wow.
No, this is way more.
Don't punish them for our good behavior.
Ratterpoint.
Ratterpoint's good.
Let's. So
I gotta say, Ratterpoint's real good.
there you go, Ratterpoint.
If I wouldn't get fired, I would walk out of this room after that.
Just leave, just like throw it. But then Plumber,
Right now you can.
but
You're gonna
Plumber,
miss the
if
spoilers.
you
but-
left now,
Sure.
you would miss one of the most fun projects we got to work on.
Yeah.
I can't do that.
I know. So you gotta stay here. You gotta
All right.
stay here for the next
I'm here
reveal
for the Ratter
because,
point.
we had. I mean, you don't have to stay for the Ratterpoint, but you
Okay.
do need to stay for the Bad Batch.
Yes.
Yes.
So the Bad Batch will be coming to Shatterpoint. Incredible sculpts. We wanted to show off the art because the sculpts are still, in process. But here it is, looking amazing. The art looks fantastic. This is a compilation of all of the different character
It
pieces
is.
that were done. And talk a little bit about that. Anything unique?
These
Fun.
these were super fun to design, and the action. I think everybody's gonna love the action and character of these miniatures.
Absolutely.
Like they are the Bad Batch to a T. To me,
They are so perfect. I remember we were working through what they do, and we'd been working on them for a couple days. I was feeling pretty good about it, and then I saw the minis, and I was like, "Oh no, these need to be cooler. These need to be cooler because those minis are."
Wow, that's hard, man. I did the initial designs and they weren't cool enough for you. That's
if
you
these
wounded
are
me.
Wrecker ripping a
Like,
bulkhead,
Isn't it
like, I
development,
was
though?
playing these and then I was like, usually I'm told that they're too cool and they have to bring them down.
That is 100% true.
These are too much. Bring them down. No, I think my favorite thing, and like every time any design gets turned into development, it always turns out better than what it started at, for sure, because that's the process, and we have a lot of talented people doing it. But I think my favorite through line is that I was able to figure out an ability for every single one that was the blank of the batch.
Yeah.
And so everything has the blank of the batch, right? The
It's
leader of the
beautiful.
batch, the brains of the batch, the muscle of the batch. And for me, that was just a really fun connection that made them feel like this amazing squad. Super fun to play, a couple different options, and I can't wait to see people paint them up. Obviously, you get heads, helmets,
helmets,
everything you want.
You get options.
Options.
Wrecker's ripping a bulkhead apart.
Yeah,
Just
So
super
good.
cool. Super cool.
teasers. It's so cool.
And before we leave you, because we are dangerously low on time, as Anne's hand signals are flashing
Indicating, yeah.
and flailing. There's a lot of flailing over there.
This is the paint stream.
We just want to let you know that we haven't forgot about the crew of the Spectre. In fact, they are highly wanted, as shown by these amazing promotional order cards that are going to come out with them. Now we're further than what I said we were going to go. So we are past spring of next year, just as an FYI. But we did want to update you. I know showing the raw sculpts at Adepticon was a huge thing. Work continues. I'm thrilled with where all of this is turning out. I know Plumber, as a huge Rebels fan, has much glee in his eyes.
I can't wait until we show these.
And
I do want to say something exciting about. Well, I realize we've gotten so far, and we have not called out our very own Ryan Ritter, who did the graphic design for all of Shatterpoint, but then
Yeah.
also put these together for us.
Yeah.
It is.
yeah, Ryan just popped these in a chat one day, and he's like, "What if we did these?"
This,
And we
yeah.
were like, "Yeah, that
Yeah,
sounds great."
that's-
I actually just started screaming when he did that. There was no it was just
Oh, it's
pure
just straight
unadulterated
to
screaming
scream.
joy.
It was
So,
a-
well, you might have been joyful. I think our last slide shows that not everyone feels the same about these characters as
No.
you do. And with this little flash, thank you so much for joining us. We hope you're excited as we are about the roadmap and what's to come. Be sure to stick around. We got a lot more mini extravaganza going on. If you're interested in Shatterpoint, we have our discussion about the behind-the-scenes creation of the game, and of course, the all-important character design and discussion as well. You can tune in. Dallas, you are painting something next.
Luke Skywalker.
Luke Skywalker. If you want to see the Fearless and Inventive pack we looked at earlier in this stream, check it out. Dallas is going to be putting paint on it. We will see you on the next one. Thanks for joining us. Day 2 mini extravaganza off to an amazing start. High
doing
fives
it.
for everyone.
That was very bad.
High fiving.
I got the back of yours. Yeah.
Fun.